G'day everybody, welcome to Pub Yarns, and well, we're not at the pub, but anyhow, never mind. Let's do the G'day everybody, welcome to Pub Yarns. Now let's do the round 20 recap. Alright, round 20 kicked off, and it was the Panthers versus the Broncos on Thursday night down there in Sydney, and bugger me, it was raining. Obviously, the rain didn't really affect the Broncos much, but the Panthers really struggled in the wet. Reece Walsh actually had an absolute pearl of a game. He looked like he was playing the way he did last year, so we'll see if that continues on during the season. But the Broncos got away with that one, and Broncos beat the Panthers 14-12. And great game by Reece, considering he kicked that last 2 points from the sideline. That was well done. Moving to the next game. It was the Sharks versus the Knights, and Nico and his men played really well. The Knights did defend fairly well there for the first good 60-odd minutes and had a bit of a fight back. The score was getting close, then there was a spread close, etc., etc. But Nico and his men held firm and they got away with the win, only by 2 points. So Sharks 20-18. The next one up was the Roosters versus the Storm, and the Storm seems to be picking up some more injuries this year. Mick Meaney, he blew a try later in the... Alright, the next game up was the Roosters versus the Storm. Next up was the Roosters versus the Storm, and that Walker seemed to have a finger in everything in that game. The Roosters overcome the Storm 14-6. Storms picked up fuck, they did. Did they pick up an injury? All right, the next game was the Roosters versus the Storm, and that McMeany seemed to have it. McMeany. Next game up was the Roosters versus the Storm, and that Walker seemed to have a finger in every pie there for the Roosters. The Roosters came away that game 14-6, but it could have been a lot closer if McMeany can hang on to a ball. Next game in was the surprise of the round, I thought, was the Raiders smashing the Rabbits. The next game in was the Raiders versus the Rabbits, and bugger me, the Raiders had a fantastic game. Even Ricky's kid there chimed in and scored a try, so that was good for the Raiders. They seem to be on a bit of an upswing, and the Rabbits seem to be on a downswing. The Rabbits are really missing Latrell, and hopefully he'll be back shortly. So the Raiders got away with that one, 34-24. Well done, the Raiders. Next game in was the Warriors versus the Dragons, and the Dragons had to travel over to the land of the big white cloud, and they didn't embarrass themselves, which is unusual for them. In actual fact, they put up a fairly good defensive fight. I thought the Dragons were a little bit unlucky with some of the calls, and I reckon some of those calls went the other way. That result could have been a little bit different. The Wars got away with that, 20-12, but the Dragons seem to be improving. Maybe they don't want that wooden spoon, or at least they want to play Parramatta for the spoon bowl in the last game. But we'll see what happens next week. The next game in was the Bulldogs versus the Who's Lost Their Way Tigers. Luai seems to be, I don't know, maybe he's upset them all, or because he's leaving to Papua New Guinea. And West Tigers have also told him to buzz off, so he's going to Parramatta next year. And at the moment, they seem to be without Luai's leadership. And in fact, if he is leading, they're not following. The Dogs smashed the heck out of the Tigers, 32-0. Here comes the surprise result: the Titans versus the Sea Eagles. The Titans, yeah, they ran around the paddock pretty good. And I tell you what, that sub for the Titans is quick. And I mean super quick. Turbo went off for the Sea Eagles, and it looks like Turbo might be out for a few more weeks. And yeah, the Titans just played good footy all day. Titans come away with that 38-32. Missed that fucking tune. Next game in was the Dolphins versus the Cowboys. That was at Suncorp. And once again, the Dolphins showed why they are way up there in, what are they, third spot? So, oh, hang on, fourth spot? Fifth spot? Last game in was the Dolphins versus the Cowboys. And I thought that might have been a little bit closer, particularly Dearden and Drinkwater back for the Cowboys. But also, the Dolphins had Hammer, Cobbo, and a few other lads still kicking around. I'll just have a quick look at that. All right, the last game in was the Dolphins versus the Cowboys. I thought the Dolphins might have went a little bit better than that. All right, the last game in for Sunday was the Dolphins versus the Cowboys. I thought the Cowboys would have been a lot more enthusiastic than that. Dearden and Drinkwater are both back on the paddock after one of them's been away for a little bit. But the Dolphins, well, they had the Hammer, Cobbo, and a few other guys who have all started to come back into form. The Dolphins are sitting in fifth spot, and it looks like they might be making a charge for the window of opportunity for a grand final themselves. So we'll see how that pans out. So that was the Dolphins 36, Cowboys 16. All right, that rounded out round 20. Now we'll advance on to round 21. And let's see how all that goes. All right, first game up is the Eels versus the Panthers. And it looks like the Eels minibus is starting to be unpacked. There should be a return of maybe Moses, Junior Polo, Will Penasini could be back. And so we'll see how that slots in there. But I don't think that's going to make much difference for the Panthers. I suspect the Panthers are going to run pretty well hot as a curry. I don't know why I fucking said that. 16. All right, the first game in is the Eels versus the Panthers, and looks like the Eels might be unpacking the minibus of injuries. Moses is looking like he might come back this weekend, along with Junior Paulo and Will Penasini. So with those three amigos back, that will definitely sharpen the Eels up. Sharp enough? I think not. The Panthers have got one player out, and that's Jack Cogger. He's suspended until next week. Apart from that, the Panthers are near a full squad. So, Panthers on top. They are first in the comp. The Eels are 15. So, if I was going to be anybody's betting man, I'd say the Panthers will probably win this game by, let's have a crack at 16. Next game up is the sixth place Knights versus the third place Roosters. The Roosters have got some players coming back this season. The next game up is the Knights versus the Roosters. And it looks like the Roosters have got a few players coming back. Tedesco's on the return. Who else have we got coming back? I don't know why that's there. Cut that out. I wanted this over here. All right, the next game in is the Knights versus the Roosters. And by the look of it, who we got coming back from the Roosters? We've got Teddy's coming back, Lindsay Collins, and there's a couple others on their return. And I think that's going to strengthen the side up pretty good. In the meantime, for the Knights, Hopewood's coming back this week, and they've still got another 3 or 4 guys out. So their minibus is still fairly full, and I dare say that the Roosters will keep their campaign alive. At the moment, the Roosters are 3rd place, the Knights are 6th, and I can't see why the Roosters won't keep going. So I'm going with the Roosters by 4. Next game in is the Rabbits versus the Storm. And the Storm seems to be having a heap of people out this week. We've got Munster still out, Hughes is out, Leo's out. So they've got, and Xavier Coates is still out until next season. So they've got a fair few gaps in their team. South Sydney, on the other hand, still got Latrell out, but he won't be too far off making his comeback. South's a 7 on the ladder. Melbourne's 11, and I think Souths at home will probably just get the bickies. So I'm going to go the Rabbits by 6. Next up is the Raiders versus the Tigers, and like I said before, the Tigers have lost their way. Raiders had a really good game last week, and I think they're going to continue along with their little march. For how long? Let's see, have a look to what they do on the week after. They've got the Panthers the week after, so they may as well enjoy the win while they can. So that'd be the Raiders over the Tigers by 16. Next up is the Bulldogs versus the Warriors, and I can't see much good coming out of this for the Dogs. The Dogs are currently in 10th spot. The Wars are in 2nd. The Wars did play a pretty ordinary game last week where the Dragons did play really well in defence, but this time I think the Wars are going to be far too strong for the Dogs. So I'm going with the Wars by 6. The next game up is the tricky one of the season, well, definitely the season and the round, are Cowboys versus the Broncos. The Broncos had a great game against the Panthers last week. Reece Walsh stood up. Who we got in the injury department for the Broncos at the moment? We've got Broncos. We've only got Gowalski's coming back. Broncos are almost at a full side. And the Cowboys, how's the Cowboys going? Cowboys, they've got not many people out either. Cowboys are at their full strength. So using that with Dearden and Drinkwater and the rest of those guys, Cotter, who else has the North Queensland got? Stags playing for Brisbane. Reese is playing for Brisbane. Mann's in Brisbane. Reynolds in Brisbane. Haas is back. Drinkwater, Dearden, Cotter, Mahoney. Ah man, this is the coin toss. What are we thinking? We're thinking that North Queensland might just get them. North Queensland by what? That's the question. I'm going to stick my neck out here and I'm going to go. Dear, should I go? I'm just having a quick look at some of the stats here. I'm going to go North Queensland by 4. Not even write that down. Since I've done that. I don't know why that blacked out. That was pretty fucking ordinary. Next game in is the Dragons versus the Titans. And I don't know, these Dragons seem to be so close but yet so far away. Titans played a great game last week, but the Sea Eagles didn't put up that much of a fight. Dragons just took the New Zealand Warriors to task. If Dragons play like they did last week, and Dragons in the home, so the Titans have to go down to Sydney where it's a bit colder. Man, I think I'm going to go. I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm going to go the Dragons by 4. The last game of the round is the Sea Eagles versus the Sharks. Why does this do this? All right, the last game of the round is the Sea Eagles versus the Sharks, and just like the Eels, the Manly seems to have a minibus full of injured players. And I'm pretty certain the Sharks, I'll just have a quick look over here for the Sharks. Sharky boys. Sharks have got only 2 players out for this game, and the Sea Eagles have got a minibus. So using that as a rule of thumb, I dare say the Sharks are going to go well, and Nico and the boys should towel up the turboless Sea Eagles. So that'd be Sharks by 8. All right, that's the end of the round this week. Hope you all got a great time last week. That is the end of the round this week. If you think your tips are a little bit better than mine, don't be scared. Put them down in the comments below, and I'll see how yours match up to mine. I did get a sneaky 6 last week, so I'm not going too bad. I'm running 4th in one tipping competition. In my tipping competition, I think I'm coming 8th because of what I did there a few weeks ago, but we won't talk about that. So once again, like and subscribe, and see you all in the next one. All right, just before you all blow off, let's have a recap of the round. So the first game in, the Eels versus the Panthers. I'm going to go to Panthers by 16. Next in, the Knights versus the Roosters. Going the Roosters by 4. Next one in is the Rabbits v the Storm. I'm going to take the Rabbits by 6, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Storm snuck home. Next one is the Raiders versus the Tigers. Tigers no good, so we're going Raiders by 16. Then we've got the Bulldogs versus the Warriors. The Warriors are going to be far too strong, but the Dogs might put up a little fight, so I'm going to go with the Wars by 6. Cowboys versus the Bronx. Well, it's up there in Cowboy land, so once again it pained me, but I'm going to go the Cowboys by 4. Next game in is the Dragons versus the Titans. This is another anybody's game, and I'm going to stick my neck out. I'm going to go for the good old Dragons. Dragons by not many. And the next game in is the Seagulls versus the Sharks, and I think Manly's just about over that Falls ball. So I'm going Falls ball, no good. Baz ball, no good. Sharks going well. Sharks by 8. Anyhow, peeps, that's the end of it. So hopefully you all like and subscribe, and all have a good one.